Gather round, me hearties, and hear the tale of the pirate trio that learned the ways of the assassin.
Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week, we talk about Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, the remake of the 2013 game that blends Hidden Blade stealth with high seas ship combat and pirate vibes. I'm Maddy Myers.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and hello.
Hello. Yahar, ye mateys. Yo-ho.
So what did you just call me?
A matey, a fellow mate.
Loose the royals and the tops. There's a lot of pirate jargon that goes far beyond my typical go-to pirate jargon in this game.
I was reacting to yo-ho.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. I guess yo-ho could be interpreted in a variety of ways, but I meant it in the kindest sex worker positive possible way. Welcome back to Triple Click,
Yo-ho's, parentheses, complimentary.
Yeah, this is yet another episode of our wonderful show, which, as we all know, I start off by saying yo-ho, you mateys, every single week. This week is no different. And also every week we talk about the fact that we are a show on the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, a network we love very much. And if you want, you can become a member and support our show. We're listener supported entirely. You go to MaximumFun.org/join. And if you were to do that, you would get our wonderful monthly bonus episodes. You'd get the entire backlog, a full cache, a treasure chest, if you will. Loot, I guess, is what we would call it in the context of this game. You get a ton of loot. You would get our most recent episode, which is a Beans cast. We spill the beans about 007 First Light. Really fun game that we all enjoyed. And the next one that we're about to record and release is going to be about the movie The Odyssey, which we have all already seen but have yet to discuss. I'm very excited to spoil the Odyssey movie and spoil the Odyssey, the epic poem, and talk all about it with you guys. And really cool adaptation. So that's MaximumFun.org/join to go and support us and get all of those sweet, sweet bonus episodes. But we've also got something cool coming up right here on the main feed. So we do an annual bet, a predictions bet. We all try to predict what we think will happen in the coming year of video games. And this past year, Kirk won the predictions bet, which means he gets to make me and Jason play a video game. And we are going to play a game called Soma. It is a very cool game that I played at the time, but haven't played in a long time. Science fiction, spooky game. We're all three going to play it, and we're going to spoil it because it's not super long. Kirk, how long is it? 10 hours?
10 to 12 hours is my memory of it anyhow. Maybe longer if you take your time.
When you keep saying that we're going to spoil things, it sounds like we're just going to ruin these
We're going to...
But we're going to talk about them in depth.
We're going to discuss the game in depth, and we're going to fully analyze the entire plot, which I will say has several twists and turns that are really cool, and that is something about the game that's
cool. And also we're going to spoil them like Taylor Farms lettuce.
If you thought you liked this game, you're not going to like it by the time you're done listening to us talking about it.
No, this is why spoilers is actually a terrible term for what it's describing. You're really
beans. That's why we spilled the
that.
beans. We're going to spill the beans on the story. Among other things.
We're spilling the beans, and they will be completely healthy, nourishing beans. And anyway, we're going to do all of that in the main feed for our August 13th episode. And the reason we say all that is because, hey, why not play Soma along with us? Check it out, enjoy it. And then you can tune into that app and have your own thoughts. You can shout them at us as we analyze the game. You can participate right along with us. Okay, that's enough preamble. Kirk, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, which is not called Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Resynced. It's just Black Flag Resynced. This is the remake plus, according to our spectrum of remakes. The remake of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, a 2013 pirate-themed Assassin's Creed game that Ubisoft has just recently put a fresh coat of paint on. Really more than a fresh coat of paint. They've added a bunch of stuff. They've really spruced it up and re-released it into the world. We've been playing it, and now we're going to talk about it. So let's talk about it. We've all been playing this game for a little while now. It's been out for a bit. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have played it as well. How are the two of you liking it? Jason, how are you liking returning to Assassin's Creed Black Flag?
So, I have maybe a controversial take here, which is that I really like the game until you get on a boat and have to sail around and do ship combat, which I know a lot of people like, and I really do not. To me, the ship combat is really slow and meandering and clunky and not fun, and just feels like you're kind of just going through emotion rather than making interesting decisions. Whereas the other parts of the game where I'm sneaking around and climbing and parkouring and fighting enemies of the new combat system, love all that stuff, good stuff. But when they put me on a ship, I get a little bummed out. That said, I enjoy it. It's cool. It's fun. I enjoy that the subtitles all have randomly capitalized nouns, which I suppose was the style of English writing at the time.
Not randomly, because, it's on purpose. But there are quite a few capitalized nouns.
It seems random to the modern reader, I suppose.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off at first until I was like, oh, this is an artistic choice. We're capitalizing nouns because it's the way that people wrote back then.
Yeah. But it's funny. No, I like a lot of this game. I just don't like the ship combat, and there's so much of it. And I don't like the sailing in general. And there's just so much of it. I think in general, I just don't love sailing in games. It just feels very clunky to me. So maybe it might just be a me thing, because I know a lot of people like it, but... Gotta be honest here on Triple Click.
Yeah, Maddy, how are you liking it?
Well, guess what? I like the ship combat. So debate time. Let's freaking go. Jason and I are squaring off. I'm throwing cannons at his ship. He's not enjoying it at all. I do like the ship combat in this game. I will say this is my first time playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag in any iteration. So
I was wondering about that.
I do not have the context for what is different, and I'm curious about it. I imagine that perhaps you two have played it, so you have a sense of that. And we'll get into it as we go. I got to just enjoy this totally new, which I think is also part of the intention of putting it out, is that not everyone played it at the time, although it's pretty beloved. This is the pirate game. I think I would have really dug it when it came out. I like pirate stuff. I'm a simple woman. I enjoy pirate things, sea shanties, and swashbuckling. I would say the thing that I struggled with in this game, I agree with Jason. I like the regular combat on land. All of that is really fun as well. I think it's very cool. But the protagonist takes a very long time to get around to being a good person. And that is the narrative arc of this game. But he is pretty unlikable at the outset. And I did not expect that. But I very eventually warmed up to him. But he really takes his time on deciding that maybe he is going to be a good person.
When did you warm up to him? Do you remember? Was there like a specific moment?
I don't know. I think it was mostly just that I got used to him. I appreciate that he has this friendship with Adewale, who's his quartermaster and who is this Trinidadian black man, and has this whole experience on the ship of being like, I am in this sort of egalitarian pirate situation that respects me as a person. And that friendship between them was part of what really endeared me to Kenway more. But probably up until they started having conversations about that, I started being like, what is good about this guy? Like, why does anyone like this character so much? And people really love him. I don't know if you two are aware of that, but this is definitely one of the characters of Assassin's Creed lore where people say Edward Kenway's their favorite assassin.
He's a wife guy.
Really curious
people like that.
He is a wife guy. It's true. That's one of his few good motivations other than money, which is his chief motivation for the first act of the game.
Yeah, let me think about that for a second. I want to talk about Edward some more. I guess just to give my background and what I think of this game very briefly. So I've played all the way through Assassin's Creed for Black Flag, and I reviewed it actually for Kotaku back in the 2013. This was right at the cusp of the PlayStation 4 generation. So I reviewed it on PlayStation 3, and I remember going to Ubisoft headquarters. They had a press area in San Francisco. And I went there and I played a little bit of it on PS4 to see, oh, look how the underbrush moves and is animated on PS4 because there's more physics. Look how beautiful the rain looks in HD and the lighting.
Those particle effects. The PS4 era, they were all talking about particle effects. Yeah, yeah.
PS4, yeah. So I reviewed this game. I'm very familiar with it, and in fact have replayed it at some point. I replayed, not the whole thing, but I replayed the first chunk of it right up until I got to where it becomes less fun and was kind of reminded, oh yeah, older Assassin's Creed games were kind of tedious, and stopped because I do really like it. I think it's
which part?
Yeah, where do you think it becomes less fun?
It becomes less fun the minute you have to do a tailing mission where you're eavesdropping on people. In the original version of this game, they were still quite enamored of this terrible type of mission where you would have to stay within a circle around two guys while they have a conversation while parkouring. The controls notoriously unreliable. If you get spotted, you fail the mission. There were a lot of these sort of follow missions and also follow and eavesdrop missions. And I think I just did the third one within a couple hours and was like, ugh, this is so tedious, and kind of lost momentum. But I find this it's such an appealing overall vibe, the way it looks, just the being in the Caribbean, the kind of high fidelity Monkey Island, nighttime, palm trees, monkeys in the trees, a small village lit by torchlight. That feeling that this game gives is just wonderful, and it's a nice place to be. And I'm really enjoying Resynced as well. I have a lot of sort of particular thoughts and critiques and whatever. Let's talk about Edward a little bit more, though, because I think that's very interesting. It kind of situates us a little more, or it's helpful to situate him in the Assassin's Creed lineage. Because I'd say of the three of us, I am by far, or I am the biggest fan of this series. I've played like every game. Our former boss, Stephen Totillo, and I would talk for hours about Assassin's Creed. The two of us and Luke Plunkett, who's now at Aftermath, actually, the three of us were like total Assassin's Creed sickos and spent much time talking about the series. And this game was right at the height of that. I mean, this is after Assassin's Creed 3. It was this period where just Assassin's Creed was popping off. There was so much going on. Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation had come out, the one starring Aveline. Freedom Cry would come after this. Assassin's Creed 3 was also really notable. And let me start there. So Assassin's Creed 3, if you remember, stars Connor, who is half, I think, English, half Native American assassin, and it tells an American story, which was a big deal for this series because originally, it was all set in the Middle East and then in Italy. So first, it's like the very first one is set in, I think, like Jerusalem and a couple of other cities around the Middle East, and then we get the Ezio trilogy. And Ezio, it's surprising, Maddy, when you say. There may be people who think that Edward is their favorite assassin,
Ezio.
but
it's Ezio. I think he's like the like cool guy answer to the question. Like Ezio's like everyone says Ezio, but then Edward is like somebody else who comes up a lot.
Maybe. I can't really imagine why someone would say that because like Ezio is the character he kind of proved, okay, if Assassin's Creed has a likable protagonist, then suddenly it becomes something much more. And that's kind of what Assassin's Creed 2 brought that Assassin's Creed 1 didn't have.
And he punches the Pope.
And then he punches the Pope. So following Ezio was a lot of fun because he was just a very charismatic lead. He went on a whole journey by the end of his story, and people were really attached to him. Connor was a poor substitute. There was a lot of interesting stuff in Connor's backstory, and making a character, have these sort of two ancestries that are in conflict, and especially like exploring the plight of Native Americans under colonists in America. Like that's all really interesting stuff, and Assassin's Creed likes to get into that kind of thing. But Connor as a character was just like a bummer. He was just kind of didn't emote a lot and just was not very charismatic. And so that was kind of where they were at the end of Assassin's Creed 3. The game had a lot of other problems, a lot of major design problems, in my opinion. The stealth was not very fun. It had just a lot of the systems that they were still using, that they'd been using for so long, had run their course, and it needed something new. They needed to figure out how to make these games feel more modern, how to make them more fun, because it wasn't 2008 anymore. Like we were in an era where there were lots of open world games with like better combat and better stealth, and like everything just kind of worked better. And Assassin's Creed was still figuring that out. This game, Black Flag, was where they figured a lot of that out, and it seemed like, okay, we can actually really blow out the idea of what an Assassin's Creed game can be. We can make it a pirate game where you're in the Caribbean. You can be a completely different kind of character doing all kinds of different kinds of stuff. And they also refined the combat. They refined the stealth, which they've done again in Resynced, because now if you play, Assassin's Creed 4, it doesn't feel refined. It feels old-fashioned. So then that brings us to Edward, who I like as a character only because he's so flawed. I was really struck by it this time. He's a real cad at the beginning, just an asshole. Like, he's totally out for himself. And then his story is one of, discovering a greater purpose. And he kind of, for anyone who hasn't played the game, he's just a kind of a pirate, basically. And he winds up coming up against a corrupt assassin who is in the process of selling the assassin's secrets out to the Templars, who are the long-standing sort of the specter to the assassins, MI6, I guess. They're the kind of, counterpart organization. And this conflict between the assassins and Templars has always been kind of confusing, because they're both like, I want people to be happy and free. And you're like, wait, can one of you just be obviously evil? Like, why does it always have to be so confusing? But that's just how this series works. Anyhow, he meets an assassin, he kills him and takes his robes and then pretends to be an assassin. And for a lot of the first part of the game, he's just pretending to be a member of this order that, if you've been playing the games up to this point, they've always been the good guys. You've always been on their side. I kind of like that a lot, especially because he does grow and has some really wonderful moments toward the end, especially as you realize that he has a stronger character than he seems at the beginning. He is actually he has a little more going on. He is an upright and good person, and he gets some really wonderful stuff at the very end, too.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell that I'm growing to like him, and I think it's also pretty bold, actually, to have a story where a character starts out unlikable, even if you understand why he does what he does, and it's clear that the assassin robes that he's stealing, like, you understand that guy is also bad. It's all in the context of you're rooting for this character, but I do think that that's part of why the game is meaningful for people, is because this is a character who has an arc over the course of the game. They grow, they learn, they change. Like, that is, at least, when did this game come out? The 2010s? Like, this was pretty innovative for the time, to have a story where a character is actually going through that much, and they're making the player take a chance on them for several hours at the outset of him being like, I'm only in it for myself. And you, the player, are like, really? How long is this going to go on before he kind of comes around and realizes that maybe there's more to life than just materialism?
Yeah, I've been struck by the writing in this a lot more than I was the first time. So the lead writer in this was Darby McDevitt, who is a longtime Assassin's Creed writer. I've actually gotten to know Darby over the last 10 or so years. A really interesting guy and very knowledgeable and interested in the English language and the literature of this time period. He also wrote Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was one of his other big ones. He's got writing credits, I think, on other games, but Valhalla was a big one. And if you remember from that game, it may have been the Viking Assassin's Creed, but really it was the, Dark Ages England, like, kind of that. It was more about England than it really was about Scandinavia. And he's very interested in all of that. And I'm just more struck by how much fun they're having with the language. In part, just the dialogue is a lot of fun. There's so much good slang and just like ship lingo that I am enjoying a lot more this time. And just the dialogue in general, I think it really has a great flow to it. And then, like you said, Maddy, yeah, some choices in the narrative as well are really cool.
Yeah, it also does the thing Assassin's Creed games do that I enjoy very much, which is include the actual historical figures of the time. And we talked about Our Flag Means Death on this show a while back, and I didn't really know that much pirate history specifically, other than just sort of generally thinking pirates are cool, until I watched that show and started doing the Wikipedia deep dive on all the actual pirates in that show, who all have really cool lives and histories. And then seeing them show up again in this game was really funny, because I was like, oh, these are completely different, but also not that different.
I mean, the Stede Bonnet is pretty similar. When he showed up, I was like, oh, right. Because it's similar to you, watched Our Flag Means Death and was like, oh, this guy. Oh, it's Stede Bonnet. Oh, that totally makes sense.
It was
Yeah, that's
great
a lot
to
of
see
fun.
him again. And I can't remember the name of that actor who plays him on Our Flag Means Death is constantly in
Darby
Taika
Reese,
Waititi.
is that his name? Or,
Reese Darby, I think it's the
Reese
other way
Darby,
around.
sorry, I've got it backwards.
And he's hilarious. And I definitely was like, they should just have gotten him to play the role in this one because like it would have been really funny if he was just the voice actor for it.
Yeah, I wonder if Reese Darby played this game. This is also where I get to mention, by the way, I think I've mentioned this on the show, that I am distantly related to Edward Thatch, aka Blackbeard the pirate.
Oh, that's
He
cool.
is- the Teach/Thatch lineage is connected to me, so I am in some ways related to him, and it's nice to see in this game he was a pirate, but he acquits himself okay, considering
Yeah.
how some other pirates.
But are you related to Alexander Hamilton? That's the real question.
No, I am not. That's a different Hamilton line.
So there's a lot of new stuff in this. It feels to me, I played the original also, although I barely remember it because I haven't played it since it was like the first game I played on my review unit for the PlayStation 4 back in the day. So I haven't played it since November of 2013. But that said, the combat feels a lot more modern. It feels like, to your point that you made earlier, Kirk, about them just kind of revamping things. It seemed, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole skill system in the bottom right seems like it's totally new, and there's a lot of it that seems very new. And I really like the changes that they made, and the kind of the way it feels. It definitely feels a lot more elegant than what I remember from older Assassin's Creed games. And then on the flip side, I like that they kept the kind of old school parkour system of not being able to just kind of magnetize to everything you see and having to find actual climbing paths, which are often very easy to find and very visibly apparent, but still better than the kind of the more modern Breath of the Wild style approach when you can just climb everything you see.
Yeah, to the combat first, it is revamped pretty significantly and for the better. It's just a much more modern feeling system. I don't love it. It's not as fun as something like Shadow of Mordor or certainly Batman, the Arkham games, which were out at the same time as these. And even at the time were kind of, I think the Assassin's Creed games kind of paled in comparison. It doesn't have the snappy rhythm of those because I think it's still a kind of hybridized system, but they've moved way more in that direction. So you're parrying, you're attacking with the shoulder buttons. So it's closer to something like the later games, Origins, Odyssey, and so on. And it just has that kind of a feeling. It's a little rubber bandy. I find that enemies hit me. I just can't quite lock in on it, and I don't think it's a me problem. I think it's just what they're working with. They can't quite get it to where a game like, an Arkham game or something would be, a game with really punchy, responsive combat. But it's definitely better, and I agree that quick attacks, like quick firing your pistols, is really fun, or they give you the rope. Like there's a kind of a rope attack that you get way later in the game originally. They move that way up so you get it super early, and that's really fun in combat because you can like grapple guys and pull them to you. Or you can just spam smoke grenades and assassinate everyone around you, which is what I do a lot, just to kind of bypass combat.
That's the way to go, yeah.
So yeah, I think the combat is definitely improved. Maddy, how have you been finding the fighting?
I really like it. I was a little put off by how long it takes before you get any ranged attacks. I really like that rope weapon, so it's interesting that they moved it up closer because it's so satisfying. But also the blow dart, I was like, finally, when I got that, because up until that moment, I was like, wow, I've been spoiled by these modern Assassin's Creed games where I have some sort of long range weapon fairly early on in the game and I don't have to just really sneak around. But I think that just speaks to the lineage and where the game was at the time and how it was probably more focused on just manually sneaking up to people, using smoke bombs, and probably prioritizing stealth ahead of any other weapon, right?
This one was, the earlier games actually had ranged attacks. There were ways you could kill guys at range that Ezio could. This was a little more notably close range than, Connor had a bow and arrow.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like there were more ranged weapons. And like Ezio, he had like a kind of wrist crossbow that he could use to pick guys off. So this is a little, it does bring things in closer, and it's more about coaxing guys to you, like when you're sneaking, than about picking them off at range until you get the blowgun and start to be able to manipulate the AI a little bit more from a distance.
That was like, okay, now we're in an Assassin's Creed game, at least in my view, where I was like, now I have a bigger suite of options to kill or put to sleep various guys in a given area. Up until then, I would often feel like I didn't have great control over when people didn't see me. And that's not really a flaw, though. I think it is also pretty fun even when you do get discovered, because the sword combat is fun enough that I was never too irritated by it. And they don't put so many guys in any given area that if you're discovered, it's completely impossible to get out of it, which I think is a tough balance to strike.
Yeah, we talked about this not too long ago, but the big difference between this and the more modern Assassin's Creed games is that you can insta-kill, assassinate anybody in this game.
Yeah, which rules.
Which, yeah, it's a much different feeling. It feels like in the more modern games, because they have those big beefy dudes and boss types, you can't just insta-kill. That changes the rhythm a lot. You have to get into combat. You can't just sneak around.
It's funny how there will be, enemies, like the captain of the ship is this boss that you have to fight. And if you get in aggro, like if you aggro him and get in a fight, there's a big health bar, like it's a fight. But if you just assassinate him from the riggings, it's just over.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious, because I there's one of those very early in the game where I kept doing the health bar thing, and I was like, this is actually really hard. This guy's entire crew is trying to kill me, and how am I going to kill this guy? He's got like the biggest health bar. And then eventually I just was like, can I just assassinate this guy? And then I was like, oh my God, I can. Whoa, what? That's amazing. This game is just going to let me sneak up behind this man and kill him. And the fight is already over, which I think is great, because it's really encouraging you to take advantage of that rather than going in guns blazing, sword swinging.
Yeah, I like it too. I don't see why they had to move to an RPG system, just because this is fine. Like if you're clever enough to get close to the guy, why wouldn't he die if you stab him in the neck with your hidden blade? I want to go back to something you said, Jason, about the parkour, because that was such a big part of this series leading up to this game. Well, leading up to Assassin's Creed 3, I guess. And I still am struck by some of the animations in this game that they added for 3. There's a really cool one where when you're up in a tree and you go around the trunk of the tree, Edward kind of like does this really slick move around the trunk of the tree. He can jump through, the crotch of 2 trees, like where it splits, and he does a really cool kind of animation. There's no better word for it. I'm sorry.
It works.
That's what it's called.
That's
Everyone knows
called.
that.
So those moves are all Connor animations, and Connor had really cool animations. That was a big thing in Assassin's Creed 3, because in Assassin's Creed 3, quite a bit of what you were doing was you were traversing the frontier. You were in the trees. Like the idea was he grew up in a small village and was like fighting colonial soldiers who were moving through the forests of New England. So here it's kind of similar, where there's a lot of jungles and Edward is like jumping through trees and climbing up in the trees. There's not as much parkour in cities, just because none of these cities are that big. I think Havana is the biggest city, and it's, feels kind of big, but it's nothing like Firenze or any of those huge, the Vatican, like these giant Rome, in Assassin's Creed 2 and the Ezio games. It's not even close. So then they need to kind of work the parkour system into this very different game. A lot of what you're doing is climbing the riggings of ships. And I like how they've done it. It's still a little bit awkward, but it's much better than it was. Like you said, Jason, you can't just climb anything. So sometimes you're trying to get to a vantage point and you have to actually figure out how to do it. But what's nice is, man, the old control scheme for Assassin's Creed, it was this really experimental thing where you're using the triggers to run. And then in the first one, it was all about like the head and the arms and the feet, I think, where like the triangle was the head and the square and circle were the arms. Like the controller was supposed to.
It was designed by Benefati.
Represent the body. It felt very experimental. And then you would just kind of drive Altair Ezio up a wall and kind of hope he goes in the right direction. Then I think it was in Unity, I may be wrong about this, but I think I'm remembering correctly, they introduced the idea of an ascend button and a descend button, which is where you press X and you'll basically go up, and then when you need to get down, which was always a problem in Assassin's Creed, you would have climbed up, and then you'd be like, okay, I want to go down this wall, and your guy would just take a flying leap off of a skyscraper and like land in the road.
There's just a convenient hay bale, and there's just hay bales wherever you look.
Often there weren't hay bales, though, and he would just jump into the middle of the road while the guy he's trying to kill is looking right at him. So there was a lot of awkwardness with getting down. Now you can just hold the circle button or the B button and you go down. And that was kind of a later series invention that they've brought in here. This is a good hybrid version. I do sometimes miss the ability to just climb cliffs the way that you can in later games, just because I'm like, I don't want to go around. But then when I think about it, it's actually kind of nice to have to look at the environment and think about where I am.
Yeah, you have to actually. The funniest animation will always be, and I think this is an older one, but it will always be when you are climbing up a tower or something, and there's a giant scaffolding above you, and somehow you fling yourself backwards and up at the same time.
The most outrageous free solo move ever.
It is ridiculous.
Like, yep.
And I remember this from like the old school ones too. I feel like that one has been around forever, and it makes no sense, but it has just persisted within Assassin's Creed. It's so funny.
Yeah, it is very funny.
Yeah, you kind of have magic climbing powers. I feel like that was something I did have to get used to, because the climbing feels almost exactly as good as a modern day Assassin's Creed. But then every now and then I would hit something and be like, why can't I climb this? This actually looks climbable, but that's just my modern sensibilities talking, I guess.
Yeah, I do dig climbing in the ships. It takes a little bit of pausing and thinking. Let's talk a little bit about the ship-to-ship combat, because like you, Maddy, I like it. I think it's fun. I mean, I have no problem with it. It's a little bit awkward, but
yeah,
I
can understand not liking it, even though I do like it.
I like it just fine. I think like once you're upgrading and you're getting into these mega battles, like later in the game, there are these, I don't remember what they're called. They're like super ships that are at the corner of the map. This is a system they've actually carried on in subsequent games, where there are these roving mega bosses that you have to be like max level end game to fight. And there are ships that are like that in this, that are these just absurd dreadnoughts with like 1,000 sails, just bristling with guns. And you always fight them, and it's like a storm, you know. We should say the weather effects in this game. They added all these new weather effects. They're amazing looking. When you're in the middle of a hurricane, like fighting a huge ship, I get pretty psyched. It's pretty cool.
The songs are cool too. Like the battle music is pretty epic, and you feel like you're in a movie.
I thought you were talking about the sea shanties, which are also pretty cool.
Those are cool as well. But I specifically meant like the battle music. It really hypes you up, and when there's thunder and lightning on top of that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's Brian Tyler as the composer. He definitely got the just do the Zimmer Pirates of the Caribbean thing.
Pretty much.
When it's time for a battle.
You can tell exactly what he's ripping off, but hey, it ain't
No,
broke.
he nailed it. I agree. I really like the music. So I like those fights, and one really funny thing I've always enjoyed about the fights, when you're fighting a bunch of ships, you kind of shoot a ship until its health bar goes red, and then it becomes vulnerable and you can board it. And when you board a ship, then you kind of lock on, and that's when you do you jump from the riggings and cut down their flag and reduce their morale until they surrender. And then you get to choose what to do with their ship. You can add it to your fleet. You can use it to lower your wanted level, which I don't really understand. Maybe you let them live, and that gets you some credit with the local authorities. Or you can destroy the ship to heal your ship. So what I wind up doing in these big fights, where I'm fighting like a big old, enemy brig and then a couple smaller ships, is like knocking out the little ships, and then when I need to heal, just boarding them and healing my ship in the middle of a really huge naval fight, which I just think is very funny and very video games. But anyways, I really like those boarding fights. Like I really like the way that it tells you to go and cut down their flag, because instead of just jumping into the fracas, you're incentivized to climb up into the rigging, and your sails and their sails are near enough that you can jump, and then there's a guy shooting at you and you have to shoot him and climb up and cut their flag down, and then you do a leaping assassination off of the riggings onto their deck. That stuff is amazing. The fact that this worked on a PlayStation 3 game, which it did. I remember playing it on PS3 and being like, I can't believe they made this work. That these two ships lock together and become one combat zone. It still feels kind of amazing doing it all these years later.
Yeah, that's the part I don't mind. It's the opening part where you're just kind of awkwardly ramming into the other ship and trying to fire your cannon at them that I don't like. But I've always hated driving sections in video games for the most part, but also driving sections while you have to shoot and drive at the same time. I hate stuff like that. So I guess it's just, again, it's just a personal thing. The boarding part, I'm fine with. It's just the opening fracas that I just didn't.
The actual naval combat.
Yeah. Love. And in general, I find navigating around the world in the ship to be very tedious. And I remember thinking the same thing about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which happens to be my favorite Assassin's Creed. I've been thinking about that game a lot recently, both because of this and also because of the movie. That game is really cool. I really love that game. But in that game also, I just found the ship parts to be the weakest ones, but it was much quicker because you could sail a much shorter distance in 5 find a new island and just kind of get on with your day. Whereas this, a lot of the whole point is sailing around and just maneuvering on the Caribbean. And I just don't really enjoy those parts of the game very much.
Yeah, I think I like the sailing in this much more than Odyssey. Odyssey, it's just like kind of an afterthought. It's just nowhere near as fleshed out. I like the Jackdaw. Like, I like that Edward has a ship that is kind of a home base. It's a little redundant that they then give you the home base on Great Inagua, and it's like, okay, now I have like 2 home bases to upgrade. Like, they could have just made it the ship, but it would be cool if you could like let Adewale pilot the ship and then just like it auto pilots wherever you're going and you could like walk around. That would be something kind of neat that they maybe could have added for this that they didn't. But I actually find that pacing wise, I just really like when you're just cruising and the wind is blowing, and when you get, going max speed, it zooms way out and you can just hear like a sea shanty on the breeze. And there's always something kind of beckoning you to go check it out. You can go hunt a narwhal or whatever, or like go explore a sunken wreck, or maybe there's a settlement over there that you haven't explored. Like, I kind of dig it. I don't fast travel very much in this game. I don't actually find the ship travel tedious.
Yeah, I kind of split the difference. I do some fast traveling in order to not spend almost the entire game on a boat, because I do eventually start to be like, wow,
Sure, and I do too as well. Just
much
to
like
clear.
real people on boats probably feel, I start to get pretty bored with my surroundings, and there are quite a lot of sea shanties, but sometimes you just want to fast travel somewhere, and they don't have the ability to do that, but I do, so I take advantage. But I largely agree in the sense that I like the vibe of it and the spirit of that throughout the game, of having the ship be your core identity and have that be something that's backed up by the characters and how they feel about it, and like it's their home and it's where they spend the bulk of the time of the game. So it makes sense that it's such a big part of everything. And we've kind of referred to the sea shanties the whole time, but like that mechanic is so great that I feel like it really can't be undersold. Like the fact that anytime you're sailing, your guys are singing all these different contemporaneous songs and sound amazing. I mean, these recordings are wonderful. Like those are, I'd always heard that about the game as well, that was a really strong part of the game. And it's so great and does make it feel worth it to spend some time on the boat vibing.
I can't believe they copied that TikTok trend for this.
The TikTok trend copied this, I guess.
I wonder. I almost feel this game certainly laid the groundwork for that big trend when
I think it did.
sea shanties went viral. Yeah, they've actually fleshed it out as well. I don't know if they've added more shanties. There are definitely some that I haven't heard, but I'm chasing them down because you have to explain to listeners, you have to go collect them in the world to get more shanties.
Yeah, that part is silly, I will say.
But you're very incentivized. No, they're kind of these fun little chases. They're very short.
I don't
you
mind
know how you're
chasing
chasing down a song in order to
Yeah, whatever.
I feel like,
It's the animus. It's a memory.
I feel like other Assassin's Creed games do that too with like other stuff from what I remember. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of like parkour chases that you have to do to find various things and fill out your objectives, fill out your checklist for each area.
Man, I got to say, regarding Adewale, that's a character note that I kind of wish there was more of him. So neither of you, I'm guessing, played Freedom Cry, right?
I haven't,
No.
but now I want to, because I think
Yeah.
he's such a strong character in this game that I understand why they made a whole DLC about him where you play as him, or maybe it's
Yes.
just about him. Okay,
He
that's
gets
cool.
his own whole DLC. He becomes, a fully fledged assassin. He gets his own ship and goes on his own adventure. It's super cool. He's a great character. And you just get so much of him in that DLC. And I've kind of felt like there's kind of less of him than I want. Like, he's such an interesting perspective compared to all of the other characters. I just want more of him in the game. And it's kind of like, it's because the original developers had a whole story of his that they wound up telling. Really, the main thing is I want them to make Freedom Cry in this engine. Like, I want them to remake that. It seems possible, at least. Like, the content is out there and they've shown that they can do it. It's a lot of the same mechanics. I have no idea if they would, but it is hard not to want that. having played Freedom Cry and playing this gorgeous remaster. Like, it'd be really, really neat to play that. And I do want more Adewale, as much as I appreciate him as a character in the base game.
Yeah, me too.
Steven wrote a newsletter about all the modern stuff that was mostly lost on me, but he wrote that the kind of the new framing is like leaving the door open for a lot more remakes that just kind of change things within them because of the way Abstergo is kind of changed and presented in this game. So I wouldn't, and given that this game is sold really well, it sold like 3 million copies in its first week or two, I suspect we'll see a lot more remakes of old Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah, man, I want to talk about that. I'm going to put a pin in talking about sales and like what this means for the future, because that is interesting. I want to say one thing about what you're talking about. So Stephen Totilo, who notably a fan of the future storyline, like the modern day storyline in Assassin's Creed, we can link to some of his writing because he's written a lot about this game and has played more than I have. There's a lot of cool additional stuff added to this game. And I've mentioned that, but I want to elaborate. Like, there's a lot. There are like character storylines. There are these sort of lieutenants that you hire that weren't in the original game. They dole out upgrades in a different way. There's new side quests. And there are these like Animus quests. I just did the first one, but it's like an anomaly in the Animus where you go in and there's this whole crazy storyline going on where you're playing through like alternate versions of Edward's future. And there's this narrator, but there's like a conflict going on. There's different people in the Animus. This is very common in Assassin's Creed, telling you, don't listen to her, she's lying, like actually listen to me. Meanwhile, you're platforming through these crazy dreamscapes built out of all of the game's assets, ships coming out of mountains, all these wild traps and sort of parkour challenges. It was fun as a sort of platforming challenge and puzzle, which I appreciate just because I like when Assassin's Creed leans into the platforming a little bit more. It was narratively interesting, and it did tie into the broader Animus stuff in a way that I kind of wasn't expecting, because going into this, I sort of assumed they were going to trim all that stuff out and leave it and just be like, here's the pirate game you guys wanted, okay? Like, we're going to forget all the weird modern day stuff. But no, it's still there, and they're leaving the door open for all these connections to other games. There are even like rifts into like Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example, the game set in Japan that came out recently. You can get, armor from that game, and you can even like encounter things that have kind of come over from that game. So there's this idea that the Animus is like the links between all of these games, the walls between these games are kind of degrading and they're all connecting into one another, which then fits with a kind of broader ongoing live service game approach to like all of these different Assassin's Creed games. They're always kind of remaking them and refreshing them and connecting them to one another.
Yeah, I feel like I lost trust in the Abstergo stuff and the modern day stuff when they introduced all this cool stuff after the end of Valhalla and then just never revisited it again. That bummed me out.
They've done that a few times. Like they did that at the end of Assassin's Creed 3 as well. It has a crazy ending in the modern day. That's the whole Desmond Miles storyline that was ongoing through those early games. This is where Assassin's Creed 4 is kind of where they moved away from that. And in Assassin's Creed 4, you are a game designer essentially at Ubisoft Montreal. Like that's who you are in the original 2013 game. That's been cut out of this. But like this, that was when they began just being like, I don't know, man. Like it really felt like they just did not know where they were going with it anymore, and they were just going to kind of do weird stuff to see what would happen.
Well, yeah, they bring Desmond back at the end of Valhalla, and then just never touch it with the whole tree of light thing, and then Basim appears in the modern day. And that stuff is just never revisited.
Well, and in an Odyssey, doesn't Cassandra also like appear to what's her name, the researcher that you're playing as, Layla?
Yeah, but that's then like addressed in Valhalla. Like Cassandra pops back up in Valhalla, but then
that stuff is all great. I do like that stuff.
It is great, but then it's just it's abandoned, which kind of sucks. Like I don't think Basim even got his own game, and it barely touched that stuff, which is a bit of a bummer.
Right, because it's not in Shadows. Yeah, I have to wonder if they'll ever come back to it. So, anyways, I think something that really strikes me about this game, the fact that it's so successful, and just the broader Ubisoft narrative, is the fact that they spent so long making this game Skull and Bones, this like cursed pirate multiplayer game that was not what people wanted and that just did not succeed. And it just, the fact that they just re-released this same game that was very clearly what people wanted, and people wanted it again, just makes me feel like, why weren't there 3 of these or something since 2013? Like, why did it take this long? And why are we only getting a remake?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is that, I mean, Skull and Bones obviously had a lot of problems, but like trying to take that component of this single player game and turn it into a multiplayer live service game changes the nature of it entirely.
Was Skull and Bones built on this game's framework or just inspired by it?
I mean, I don't know. It looked like this. It looked like Black Flag in action.
Interesting. Yeah. It is hard to imagine this really being as good. I feel like part of what's fun about the ship combat, despite its occasional jankiness, is that it's part of an ongoing story, and the characters that we've been talking about are part of what make it powerful and meaningful for you to be doing any of this. I guess it's easy for me to say this in retrospect, but making that into a live service game is just such a different energy than having a story where you're like, there's a reason why I'm a pirate and I'm doing all of this stuff with my pirate friends.
And there's so much friction and kind of clumsiness in the way the game works that it just doesn't work as a multiplayer game. Like, there have been a lot of Assassin's Creed multiplayer games. They can be fun in small doses, when you're kind of like playing hide and go seek with one another. But it's just not smooth enough and fluid enough and responsive enough to work as a competitive game. And I'm just surprised that this was not clear to people at the time. Because when you're playing in single player, the fact that like Edward goes up the rigging and then gets kind of turned around and like goes back, and then I have to turn him around again, and then he jumps in the wrong direction, and then he kind of lands, and then it's pretty inelegant, but I just shoot some guys and throw a smoke bomb and then I win. Like, that's fine in the context of like a 30-hour single-player game where I'm just doing that a lot and who really cares. But if you're playing a multiplayer game, it just can't be like that. If you compare this to Sea of Thieves does not have that problem. Sea of Thieves is incredibly fluid and responsive. It feels correct when you're playing it because it has to be to support a competitive multiplayer game. It just seems like it was never going to work. And yet they could have made another single player game. It could have even been called Skull and Bones and not been an Assassin's Creed game and just been about a pirate, like a pirate action RPG single player game. And I bet it would have sold a shitload of copies and people would have liked it. It seems galling to me, or I guess it's indicative, it's emblematic of the 2010s and of the live service, the chase of live service and of all these bad decisions that were made over that time period, that it took 13 years for us to get another single player game like this, and it's just a remake of the one that they already had.
I mean, it's still kind of like Ubisoft's in a we're so back phase, though, because like Shadows did pretty well, and now this is doing well. So I don't know. I still think it's like, hey,
single player Assassin's Creed games.
Took you a while to circle back around to the thing people like, but you are in fact doing it again. So hooray, you did it.
Yeah, hopefully they're taking some lessons from this of just like people like these big single player games. That's the thing that they like to play. Well, that'll do it, I guess, for this conversation. A pretty cool remake. It is a remake plus, according to our spectrum of remakes.
I love that you're sticking with that. You're like, we're going to open with that and we're going to close with that.
I saw somebody cite that in an article recently. I think that they were talking about this, and they're like, well, Triple Click's Kirk Hamilton broke down all the different types of remakes. This is technically a remake plus.
I love that.
It's a new engine and actual new gameplay and mechanics. So this is I would say a really winning remake plus. Seems to be doing well, which is not really surprising. And I'm going to keep playing it, I think, when I have time. I'm having a great time just cruising around, hunting for iguanas, air assassinating a rabbit from a tree so that I can upgrade my gun holsters, playing a video game.
As one does.
Yeah, like you do when you're a protagonist in an Assassin's Creed game.
Exactly. Well, let's take a break and then come back for one more thing.
Hi, my name is Bria Grant, and I host Reading Glasses and Reading Smut, and I'm here with Max Fun Member of the Month, Nick Roy.
Thank you so much.
What episode would you recommend to a new listener who's just jumping in for the first time?
Definitely the one where it's like, let's talk about reading glasses. Because as someone who started listening, 7 years in, I was like, oh, that's why we say that.
Oh my God, Mallory's gonna love that you said that, because she really was like, we gotta tell people more about ourselves. I'm like, we just talk about ourselves every week. What would you say to other people who are considering supporting Maximum Fun shows?
I would say if you want to keep listening to content that you enjoy and you want to support the creators, I don't know, I just won't get a Starbucks once a week and I give you guys $10 a month. Sounds good to me.
I love that. And listen to Nick. Nick's a librarian. He knows what he's talking about, so.
Support the shows you love, including this one. Check the show notes for a link or go to MaximumFun.org/join.
Howdy there. So sorry to interrupt whatever amazing show you were listening to, but it's time for an ad. I'll be so quick and get you back to your show, don't worry. I'm host Austin, one half of a podcast called Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries that I make with my good friend Brenda. We talk about the pop culture stuff you like Thundercats and Yu-Gi-Oh! Did you know that the Thundercats are cousins with Farrah Fawcett? Or that Yu-Gi-Oh! Once caused a riot? You probably want to know more. You can find us at Maximum Fun or wherever you get podcasts every single Tuesday.
And we are back for one more thing. Maddy, let me hear from you. What's your one more thing?
Sure. My one more thing is the Netflix adaptation of Little House on the Prairie that just came out this year. It's a TV show version of the very old Laura Ingalls Wilder books that were based on her real life, being the daughter of a guy who decided to settle in Osage land in the Prairie. And that is something that the Netflix show very directly and specifically addresses in a way that I think it's the 1970s TV show. I think that's when that one came out. I know Gen Xers are very fond of that version of Little House. This show is pretty different from that one, from what I understand, and takes a lot of liberties with the source material that I think are really fascinating and cool. I really liked this show, and I read a lot of articles about it afterward because I was really curious how they made the decisions that they did. So they've still included all of the Ingalls family, and they've kind of written out some more motivations for Charles Ingalls, or Pa Ingalls, as little Laura calls him all the time. And as I tend to call him, because I read these books as a kid, so I still think of him as Pa Ingalls. They've written out his character a lot more to make it such that he isn't entirely aware that he's settling in Osage land when he gets there. And that, I think, helps make him be a more sympathetic character. Whereas in the original books, he says more casual racist things. And it's more, I would say, since it's written by a child and we're just kind of basing this on Laura's memory, it's not entirely clear if he knows the situation with the land, because the land was in dispute during this time period. As it was for many, many, many decades of American history. This was a time period when that land was still technically owned by the Osage people, but other people were choosing to live on it. And that was a matter of great contention, obviously, for the people who wanted to keep living there, the Osage. So they've introduced all of these other characters in this show, Osage characters, and written them out and had them be sympathetic, but also complicated. And those characters are not present in the book. But they've also included characters in the book who I had totally forgotten about. Like, for example, there was this Black doctor who helped the Ingalls with, I think it's malaria that they all get. And that happened in the book. But when I was watching this Netflix show, I was like, okay, like, cool. They introduced this Black doctor character. It's probably part of like the different stories that they're telling about contemporaneous things at the time. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, this is a real guy from the book. And he's like an actual Civil War veteran of the time who's like one of the first like notable Black doctors of this pioneer era. And like, that was really cool to learn about. Anyway, this show, it's just really cool. I think it's interesting. I also appreciated hearing about how some of the motivations of the Native people who worked on it was that it would be a family-friendly show and that it wouldn't just be focusing on some of the sad aspects of the Osage people's history, and that it would be something that would allow families to have the conversation with kids who are Laura's age in the show. She's like 9 or 10. She's like a little girl, but it's like an approachable way to have conversations about pioneers who moved to these places and the dangers that they were facing, but also the fact that they were living in other people's land. And I think that's cool and an interesting project. So Yeah, I also really liked these books as a kid, and as an adult have had to be like, wow, those books included some really messed up shit. So I was really curious to see how they'd adapted, and it's interesting. So I recommend it. Obviously, it's called Little House on the Prairie, and it's on Netflix.
Nice. All right. It's that and yesteryear. We've got a lot of media,
a lot of pioneer media.
Interesting.
Yesteryear is very, very different.
No, I know. It's just, of course, very different, but a similar focus on a similar time period. There's something to that, I'm sure. Jason, what's your one more thing?
My one more thing is a video game called The Mermaid Mask that came out last week, and it is really cool. This game, it's by the makers of Tangle Tower. This is a sequel to that game, if you remember it, and also Crow Country and Snipper Clips. So a very diverse group of games.
Crow Country is so good.
Made. So this game is it's kind of a hybrid of like a deductive game, kind of like Golden Isle style deductive game, and a point and click adventure. It is set aboard this submarine, and the captain of the submarine is found dead, and you, playing this pair of investigators who are very funny, have to go and figure out who killed the captain and what happened here by interrogating these 8 suspects and investigating the entire submarine, looking for clues and trying to piece together what went down. And so there's a few different kind of types of gameplay that play into this. One is these little minor puzzles that you can find while you're investigating, little logic puzzles and whatnot. The other is interrogating people and trying to figure out what to ask them about, who to ask them about. By the end, you'll probably be asking all of them about every single object you found in your inventory, and then figuring out what each of their stories is, because all 8 of them, even the ones who were not responsible for the murder, all of them have their own secrets, and you can kind of piece together what those secrets are, what they're lying about, what they're telling you the truth about. And they're all really weird characters. It's a submarine full of weirdos, which is very delightful. The writing is really good in this game. The dialogue is really good. The voice acting is really good. The pacing is really good. It's a very well-constructed game. And I really liked it. Really enjoyed it. Played through the whole thing in just a few hours. It's a nice chunk of... it's not too long. It doesn't wear out its welcome. And... I really enjoyed putting the whole thing together. It's got some legitimately hilarious moments and some clever writing and just a great, solid mystery that I think both of you would really enjoy. I think it took me like 6 or 7 hours to beat. It's really not much of an imposition at all to play through at all, and just a really enjoyable experience, I would say. The point and click adventure aspect of it, by the way, is a lot of just kind of hunting for clues in each of these rooms within the submarine. And there's a lot that you can click on, and a lot will just lead to funny dialogue with your investigators, your duo of detectives. And yeah, it's just really well done. I just really enjoyed playing through it. I believe
Did you play this with a controller, like on Steam Deck, or is it actually point and click with a mouse?
I played it all on Steam Deck, but you can also use...
And it's just controller...
It's controller friendly, but you could also use the touchscreen on Steam Deck if you wanted to. But yes, I played it all on Steam Deck. I feel like you can assume that every game I talk about, I'm probably playing it on Steam Deck.
No, right. I ask because like on Steam Deck you can use the trackpads and like play it with a mouse. And like
no,
some point and click adventure games aren't great with a controller.
Yeah, I feel like these days so many of these games are being built with controller in mind. Even that game from last week, The Incident at Galley House, I played entirely on Steam Deck, and it was also had great controls. Yeah. No. It's a good question. It's a legitimate question.
Thank you. Thank you.
You would be a good interrogator. You would be a good detective. You see if you could catch me in a lie there. Yes, the Mermaid Mask, I played it on the Steam Deck, and yeah, we just really enjoyed it. Although there are a couple of annoying glitches that I ran into over the course of playing it. But one thing I did discover is that if you want to play a game on your Steam Deck while your wife is using the Steam machine, I think I told you both that I've been getting Amanda into Blueprints for the first time. My wife, who doesn't play a lot of games, I've been been getting into Blueprints. She's really into it. So she was playing that in our bedroom on the TV, and I wanted on the Steam machine on the TV, and I wanted to play on the Steam Deck, but you can't play games simultaneously on the same Steam account. So what I did was I took the Steam Deck offline, turned off the wireless, and then I was able to do it. But it causes some issues. Like Steam doesn't like it when you play games offline on the Steam Deck. It starts trying to update things and chugging along and whatnot. It was causing me some problems, but I made it work. Anyway, the Mermaid Mask, really cool game. It's gotten a lot of buzz. I think it's one of the top rated review games of the year, and I think it's been doing well commercially too. I recommend it. It's really cool. Definitely one of my favorites of the year so far.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's on my list for sure. I am looking forward to
You will both enjoy it quite a bit.
Playing it. Yeah, it looks really good. Well, my one more thing is also a new game that's fantastic called Denshattack. And it is a lot of fun. Are either of you aware of this game?
Yeah, I've heard of this game.
Okay, so this is a game made by the Undercoders, who are a Spanish studio based in Barcelona.
The Undercoders.
It's a skateboarding game where you control a train, and I think that's probably how most of our listeners who have heard about it will have heard it described. It's you're a train and you're doing like kick flips and ramping off the tracks and doing skateboard stuff.
Densha means train in Japanese.
It is very much a kind of combination of Tony Hawk and SSX Tricky. I see a lot of people compare it to Tony Hawk. I actually find the gameplay to be closer to an SSX game, a sort of snowboarding type thing, because you're flying forward on the tracks and then you're doing sick tricks and you're memorizing each run so that you can do better and better and find the right moments to pop the gnarliest tricks in midair. So I would use those as the two comparison points, but I would say for me, it's closer to SSX Tricky, and I love SSX Tricky and have never totally gelled with Tony Hawk because I'm not that good at them, so that's actually a really good thing for me. So let me rewind or zoom out and explain a little more like what the game actually is. So it's a really brightly animated, beautiful looking game. It looks like a Dreamcast game. Like it really looks like your memory of a Dreamcast game. It has that kind of really bright, brilliant game from like kind of Y2K video game look. You are actually playing as a young woman named Emmy, who is a ramen delivery driver in this kind of, I guess it's a post-apocalyptic, or at least it's just a future version of Japan where, due to climate change and a bunch of degradation of the world, like most people live in these kind of cities that are connected by train tracks that are controlled by a single company. But then some people still just kind of live outside and maybe it's fine. So it's totally clear what's going on. I'm not super far in the game, so it might be that this stuff is all explained. There is that like megacorp overseeing everything, and they're definitely kind of looming in the background as a potential antagonist. But Emmy just delivers ramen, and the way you get around is you drive a train, and it's basically a subway train car, like a single train, like an engine for a subway train. And then because the tracks are designed by video game designers, you're constantly ramping yourself up in the air and doing flips and like jumping from one track to the other to, avoid hazards, and eventually jumping your train up onto a rail and doing a rail grind where you're balancing left and right, and doing all kinds of Tony Hawk, SSX type, snowboarding tricks. There's a storyline where like Emmy, who is just a naturally brilliant train pilot, learns that Denshattack is this whole world of people who are essentially competitive athletes. Each one has like a really cool style, and they're all these like really fun kind of stylized characters with a lot of attitude. And she and a new friend who's a photographer and kind of publishes a zine about Denshattack. Like he kind of brings her into this world. Pretty soon she's meeting all of the celebrities of the Denshattack world and rising in their ranks. And it's a very 2000s video game kind of story, but it's very charming. The characters are really fun. There's really cute loading animations. The whole, the complete package of this game, it just lands on both feet sprinting. Like it is totally self-assured. From the minute you start it, you're like, oh, these people know exactly what they're doing. They've played all of the games that they're referencing, and they've got it nailed. Like there's no uncertainty. Like they got the brief and they nailed it.
The art style reminds me of Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is a recent one, which again is another one that feels kind of like a throwback to Jet Set Radio and to those types of games. But yes, it definitely looks and feels kind of like Hi-Fi Rush. It's not a music game, but it's very rhythmic, and the music plays a big role in it. It has a killing soundtrack. Unsurprisingly, a game like this just needs to have it's full-on synth fusion, Sega, sounds kind of like that Sonic music, like a 3D Sonic game. And it gets you just really pumped up. Kirk here with a little bit more about the music to this game because, well, I said it was good. I think I kind of undersold it when I was talking to Maddy and Jason. The soundtrack to this game is absurd. This is Coastline Funk by Andrew One. The game's primary composer is named T. Lopes. Here's one of theirs called There's a Trick to It. Gives you a sense of the time period they're emulating. And a composer named Sean Bialo also wrote a bunch of tracks. At least I think I'm pronouncing his last name right. He wrote some absolute bangers. Here's an early one called Passing Ariake Breeze. They also got composers who have worked on actual Sega series. There is a track by Richard Jacques, who composed for Jet Set Radio. Persona composer Shoji Meguro does a track for this game. There are so many great composers on it. There's just way more music than I even realized, and in addition to all of its other great attributes, this game is quite a musical accomplishment. So just wanted to say that and give this music a little bit more love, since it really is so good. Okay, back to our conversation. Bing! Man, this game is so much fun. I don't play that many games like this, but I loved SSX and SSX Tricky back in the day. And I really did get into repeating runs so that I can learn all the moves, which I think is a big part of the joy of this game. It is there's a series of tracks. Each one has its own little secrets and challenges and sort of secret routes that you can figure out and ways to maximize the score. You're going for time and you're going for tricks, and you just have to kind of learn the track. And you could just play through this and you'd probably get through most of it and you wouldn't have to replay too much. And there's a lot of stuff in this game, so you'd have a good time. But the joy of the game for me has been in replaying a level and really getting it locked in and kind of, the way that I used to play games like this back when I had more time and was on my friend's PlayStation 2 or whatever, playing SSX Tricky. You have to embrace it in that way, or it helps to embrace it in that way. And yeah, it's also just full of surprises. It's not just fun levels. Each level that I've played so far has introduced new mechanics. There are these set piece moments that happen that are really surprising, where I'm yelling in delight. Emily is playing Animal Crossing on the couch next to me and I'm like, oh my God. And she's looking up and we're both cracking up at something really crazy that's happening, where it's designed well, where when it throws something totally unexpected at you, it's in a way where you're able to react and keep playing the game. So you feel like you're doing something totally insane. You don't just immediately crash because suddenly you're doing something you didn't expect to be doing. So it kind of moves you through those sequences in a way that makes them maximally entertaining. There are boss fights that are really cool. I gather there are some later that I haven't gotten to that are incredibly memorable. So this game is pretty sensational, I have to say. I'm really, really impressed with the developers. The people who made it are just super skilled at everything they did, the art, the music, the feel, the design, the level design, the narrative, the characters, the writing. It's just all really, really strong. So I'm going to keep playing it. It's just come out of nowhere and it's such a surprise. It's not the kind of game that I really go for or that we even really talk about here. We have our styles of games that we like. This is a different thing and it's very old-fashioned in some ways, but for me, that's been so refreshing. It just feels like something completely new. I was playing a lot of Assassin's Creed the last couple of weeks, and in this last week, I'll just play some Denshattack for a little while. It's a great way to break up another game. You just do a couple of courses. It's super fun, have a great time, and then take a break because, it lends itself to bite-sized gaming. So I wholeheartedly recommend this game. It is incredibly cool. If you think you will like it based on my description, you will like it. Almost certainly. It is a very much a known quantity despite being constantly surprising and delighting. So just a great game that I really recommend.
Very cool.
Awesome. Sounds awesome.
It is. And and that's another episode of Triple Click, folks.
So we'll be back soon to talk about the Odyssey. I'm excited for that one.
We'll be back.
Yay.
Yeah, within the week. We
kind of want to go replay Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Man, playing Black Flag did make me want to see I just go back to Odyssey and play it again. I played too much of that game, though. I played so much of it, but it'd be fun to play it again.
Me too. I played so many hours. And that game was so friggin' long.
I think I probably played more hours of Odyssey than any other Assassin's Creed game.
It was so long. There were so many regions. Oh my God. And then they added all those like mythical creatures that you could fight. God.
Yeah, when there's DLC that I never played.
Yeah, there was a whole Atlantis DLC.
Yeah, I think, I never really played that. I think I started it and I was like, oh my God, I can't. I'm at 85 hours. That's enough.
Too much, yeah.
All right, well, maybe we'll play that and talk about it in the future. But for now, I think
we just randomly did that.
we're gonna play some Soma, something very different, and be back for another episode next week. So I will see the two of you then.
Yeah, see you then.
See you next time.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Email us at tripleclick@MaximumFun.org and find links to our merch store and our Discord server in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.